What up, guys? It's Thursday, so that means it's another episode of Modern Meta Breakdown. This time we're doing a fun deck, right? We got to see, I guess we've been doing fun decks for a little while now. Like, we've seen a lot of the popular decks. They've kind of been the decks that we've talked about. We've gone through most of them. Now there's some more, like, fun decks that you still see at tournaments, but they're not the most popular. And there's reasons behind it and ways to kind of beat said decks, and we usually go about it and talk about what is the advantages, disadvantages of each deck that you'll be seeing and playing against. And again, I don't know why I'm wearing headphones, guys. There's no sound coming through. It's because I was watching more than a couple months, but we've been doing this for a while now, and like I said, we've gone through a lot of modern decks. We are going to start doing some standard coverage. Well, I guess not really coverage. We're getting back into the modern coverage, but we're going to be doing some standard meta breakdown soon. With Ixalan coming out, we're going to start talking about some of the cool decks that are going to be standard playable, and basically what we do for modern meta breakdown. Now, we are not stopping modern meta breakdown. It will still be coming up on Thursdays, but it'll be another thing you can watch at the beginning of the week, standard stuff, for you guys to kind of get an idea. Maybe go, well, you know what, there's some cool stuff, maybe I'll get into standard, you know, maybe. So, but again, this channel started out with the modern stuff, so we're going to be talking about that. And since you clicked on the video, you saw the title of it, you came here for a reason, right? You wanted to learn about this Hexproof deck. Green-white Hexproof, Boggles, whatever name, Build-A-Bear deck you want to call it, you know, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So let's talk about the deck, right? Let's just jump into it, talk the ins and outs of it. So bam, here's the sweet deck we're going to talk about. We've got basically two that I want to go over. There are a couple different variants and stuff that you can be able to do with it, but these are the main ones, right? So we're going to go over, let me make sure we get all the sideboard cards in there. There we go. All right, so let's talk creatures, right? What is the point of a Hexproof deck? Well, as the name implies, right, we're going to want to have some Hexproof creatures, right? This is three that usually see play. Ledgewalker is not in this list, but I just wanted to highlight it because it is another creature that you do see play quite often in it. But here's the two main Hexproof creatures that are going to be seen. Now, there are other Hexproof creatures in Modern, like you could try to go for like a Bant version with like Invisible Stalker and Geist of St. Trath and stuff like that, but that's much slower and less powerful. This is an explosive deck, and it's very powerful. So, take a look at the creatures real quick. Gladecover Scout, Slippery Boggle, both cost 1 green to be able to cast. I mean, Boggle you can do blue, but we're not running blue. We don't have to worry about it. But they're 1/1s with Hexproof. So you go by themselves, they're not a lot. They're not that scary, not much of a threat. It's the Build-A-Bear aspect of the deck, or this kind of, I'm going to just make a tower of enchantments on top of this one Hexproof guy. And normally we would deal with creatures with removal spells. Well, guess what? You're not going to be removing these creatures. There is 2 more creatures that usually see play consistently, and that is, of course, 1 Dryad Arbor that we do see here. Bam, Dryad Arbor, which is our forest land creature guy. It's 1/1 for this green creature. Cannot tap for mana the turn that it comes into play because it does have Summoning Sickness, so there is that aspect to it. But you can use your fetch lands to get him. So the deck does have to have a creature in order to go off. Now, you could maybe keep a greedy hand with some fetch lands and some decent enchantments to try to go for this Dryad Arbor style of play. It's risky and much harder to do, but it is in there as another creature that you can be able to get, because 13 is not a lot of creatures, right? So we talked about the Boggle, we talked about our Scout, but let's talk about our other creature that we could be able to see play. Core Spirit Dancer. Of course, it costs 2, 1, and a white for a 0/2. You're like, well, that's not going to do very much, but Core Spirit Dancer gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, which most of the spells in this deck are aura, so we'll talk about that next. But whenever you cast an aura, you get to draw a card. So that is nice. You may, too. It's not that you have to. So there could be some factors where you might not want to, but for the most part, it'll help you reload your hand, because there are many times where you go, well, I've dumped all of my enchantments onto this one guy. Now, what am I going to do besides just swing in and attack? Now you can kind of reload and maybe find more enchantments, find some other sort of fun stuff that you can be able to do with it. So a lot of the lists do include the Spirit Answer for that reason, is that reload ability. And we've seen that with other sort of decks that run out of gas. This one can be able to pick up the pace later on because of this draw ability. The deck really is a glass cannon for all of you guys sitting at home. It is very fragile but very powerful. So 18 lands in the list here. You can see just the kind of singleton, forest, plains, the Flooded Strand. It's just basically a white fetch. Play set of Rising Canopy. It is expensive, I know. Getting reprinted, so might be able to find it cheaper. Not necessary in the deck if you really like the idea of it and want to play it. You don't have to have it. It does make the deck better. I'm not going to lie. By being able to draw a card, draw into more enchantments, maybe draw into a creature, it helps. Razorverge Thicket, here's our green-white fast land. Cool. Temple Garden, we can fetch into it. And then, of course, the playset of Windswept Heath. So, makes sense of the land choices. So we've got kind of all of these basically enchantments. I'm just going to quickly talk about our non-enchantment. Path to Exile. You saw it up a little bit earlier, but Path to Exile, just having a little bit of removal, maybe clear the way if we don't have any way to get evasion, get trample or something on our creatures. We can just get rid of that pesky threat here. There's a couple of enchantments that I wanted to highlight first before we go through the whole list. Alright, so let's take a look at our different ones. Bam, bam, bam. Alright, so you can see on the bottom here, we've got our Umbras. The top are kind of two of the most powerful enchantment auras that the deck has to offer. So let's talk about the Umbras first because they are very important. Now you've seen some people reduce the numbers of Umbras that they have. This list is running 4 Hyena and sitting at 2 Spider. So not only does it give the creature +1/+1, that's definitely nice. Does have an extra effect, like the Hyena one gives it First Strike, the Spider one gives it Reach. But the main reason that you're running it is for that Totem Armor, right? Totem Armor, if the enchanted creature will be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it and destroy this aura instead. So hey, you're going to try to board wipe to get rid of stuff, cool, but if I have Totem Armor, my guy sticks around, so there's that. So that's really nice to have those sort of added into your list. The two big ones at the top, right? Ethereal Armor just makes your guy huge, right? 1 white and says enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. So for example, let's just say Daybreak's not here, okay? Oh, Boggle, you're hanging out. All right, there we go, Boggle. Okay, Slippery Boggle has Hyena Umbra, Spider Umbra, and Ethereal Armor. So Boggle's a 1/1, right? Hyena Umbra makes him a 2/2. Spider Umbra makes him a 3/3. And we have 3 enchantments, so now he's a 6/6. Okay, that was quick. But this also works for other enchantments, right? So for example, hey, pregame effect, here's my Leyline. That also buffs up Ethereal Armor. So instead of him being a 6/6, I had Leyline in my opening hand. So guess what? Now he's a 7/7. So just a little bit of extra stuff. Plus he's got First Strike. So, just a nice little push there. But Daybreak Coronet is really the big one that you want to be able to land. So you have to have those auras like Ethereal Armor, Hyena Umbra, Spider Umbra on your creatures in order to basically let Daybreak be cast. You can cast it, and they can try to kill off your auras, and if they do, Ethereal or Daybreak just falls off and dies. So it says enchant creature with another aura attached to it. There's the requirement. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3, First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. So if you've been getting hit pretty hard early on, ignoring blocking because you're rarely going to be blocking with this deck, you now can basically turn the tide and say, well, now I can attack, block, and just gain life. Right? First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink. Great. And even if you only have a Hyena Umbra on it, I mean, that creature is getting +4, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, so that's already a 5/5. And you can cast this, turn 3. It's something crazy you can be able to do, and that's a crazy clock to start swinging at them. And that's assuming you haven't done anything else leading up to it, put any other enchantments or anything on it. Now there's a couple other ones that are really good that we will be talking about. We've got some evasion that is available here, like Gift's Boon is kind of a newer one some people are trying out. I like the idea of it. It's another aura, so it kind of works with our Daybreak. Gives the creature +1/+0 and flying. So hey, let's just kind of go over top of you. If you gum down the board and I can't get a Daybreak on there, can't get some trample on there, let's do that aspect of it. And then you can pay 4, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield, attach to target creature, activate this only as a sorcery. So it does have that extra, but really you're going to rely on just that +1 and flying and that aura aspect of it. So there is that. We've also got our Spirit Mantle. I'm a huge fan of that. I love having Spirit Mantle in my list when I was running this deck, and that's colorless and a white, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and protection from creatures. So you just made your 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, whatever big hexproof guy you have now unblockable. And they were sitting there gumming up the board, and you just go, yeah, well, you can't block me. I have protection from creatures. I'm just going right by you and just going right for your face. So enjoy that extra damage there. So that is a nice aspect. Another way to kind of get around that is we've got a playset of Rancor in here, another aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0, has trample, and of course whenever Rancor is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So you do have that extra. We've also got our Unflinching Courage, costs 3, so a little bit more expensive, kind of the second most or most expensive or that we're going to be casting, if you will, like ignoring Leyline. This is the most expensive one that we're going to want to cast, and that is 3 mana, 1 green, white. Enchant creature gets +2/+2, trample, and lifelink. So kind of like a mini Daybreak Coronet. Like as we think of like the big enchantments we really want to do, Daybreak is really what we want to do. But if we can't do that, well, Unflinching is pretty nice because we get some lifelink off it and some trample. All right, but it does cost 3, so it is a little bit more of an investment, but can easily turn the tide. So we've got that kind of aspect going into it. But really, it's like that's kind of how the list works. There's a lot of flex spots in how you want to approach things. I've seen some people actually opting for the Cartouche main board, which is one of our new ones from Amonkhet, if you guys have been familiar. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has first strike, and you make a 1/1 vigilance warrior, right? So there is that aspect of it. Some people do it main board. We see 2 in the sideboard here. An extra Leyline of Sanctity in the sideboard. Double Rest in Peace. Yes, love it. We need that. Double Stony Silence. Sweet, cool. Kataki is in here. Again, anti-artifact stuff again. Gaddock Teague is in here. Hey, we're going to make sure that we can mess with some of those big players like Tron, or maybe even against some of those control style of decks and things like that. So yeah, there's that aspect to add into it. I skipped over a couple of cards real quick. Beast Within, hey, it's essentially adding some removal into it, and our Spirit Link, enchanted creature, whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life. So this can essentially have double lifelink in a weird way if you never realize this. Let's say I have Daybreak Coronet, right? So lifelink is when I deal damage. I'm going to gain that much life essentially. But with Spirit Link, the enchantment lets me be able to gain that much life based on the creature dealing damage. So I can gain the life from lifelink from Daybreak Coronet, and then gain the life off of the Spirit Link too. So hey, if you need to really gain a lot of life, that'll be a way to help you out. And you can against like burn decks and stuff like that. So that is nice. Suppression Field, love it. We've talked about this in the like red-white prison deck and green-white ones and things like that, but activated abilities cost 2 more to play unless they're mana abilities. So those fetch lands, you got to pay 2 mana to fetch. Those planeswalkers, you're going to have to pay 2 mana to activate those planeswalker abilities, which works really well because the most hated planeswalker of this deck is Liliana of the Veil because of that -2 ability to make you sack a creature. You're going all in on one creature, and then they just say, okay, sack that one creature. Sorry, not sorry. I stabilize and I can win. That's another reason why people are starting to run the Cartouche in the main board too, is because, hey, I'm going all in on this one creature. Here's my Cartouche. Now I can be able to have a 1/1 white warrior creature that I can be able to sack and keep my big guy alive. So Spider Umbra, Hyena Umbra will not protect you against sacking a creature because you're not destroying it from damage. They're just choosing to get rid of that creature. So Suppression Field, I think, is a must for the sideboard for this list. Plus, it works out well when people bring in Spell Skites and stuff like that against you, because the Spell Skite, they can redirect all those enchantments onto you. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind when you're building this list. So real quick, I wanted to slide over and talk about a second version to kind of show you, because it is running, guess what? Our Ledgewalker. I wanted to highlight that first as we went into it. So let's talk about it. Like, some people I know are opting for more Ledgewalkers and less Spirit Dancers, because it does have a little bit of evasion with it, and core Spirit Dancer can die to Fatal Push. So there is that aspect to it. I guess, really depends, but I like having the one of Ledgewalker in there. I think that's fine. It works out really well because, again, it's a hexproof, does cost 2, but he can't be blocked except for by creatures with flying. So you have that extra evasion kind of built into him. So this list, though, does run the Spirit Mantle, Spirit Link main board. Only has one Spirit Mantle in this sort of style of things, but saying, you know what, I don't care so much about the protection from creatures. I'm going to kind of just be able to sneak in with some extra, like this Ledgewalker, and I've got the Rancors in here. I've got my Hyena already, Griffspoon. I'm going to fly over top of you, really kind of going that route. Daybreak, Ethereal Armor. So really just going to make one guy big and fly over top of you. So again, we talked about the flexibility of the enchantments. You see there are no Spider Umbras in this list, so it's kind of going for that route. Definitely really dependent on what your meta looks like if you're going to be playing. Maybe you have a lot more burn in your meta, so you're saying, yes, having that main board Spirit Link is super important for me. I like that, or maybe it's not as important because there's not as much burn. Maybe, you just adjust it as you see fit. If you like this sort of flying style, this might be the way to go. Having more Griffspoon, cool. Maybe adjust how many Ledgewalkers you have, things like that. But you're always going to have 4 Scouts, 4 Boggles. You should have 13 to 14 creatures. You cannot go lower than that. Sorry, you will not win. You need to have Leyline of Sanctity main board. You will probably not win if you do not. Like, with the amount of disruption that is running around Inquisition's Thoughtseize, or just the amount of burn spells that can come at you because they say, well, I have all these lightning bolts and, helixes and things like that that can't go for your creatures. I'm going right for you. Get ready. So having those main board, I think 2 to 3 is accurate. You can always do 2 and 2 depending on what your meta looks like. Again, it's dependent on how you want to build it, but that is one way to go about it. So talking sideboard, hey, guess what? There's the Leyline, there's the Rest in Peace, cool. We got extra Spirit Mantle. Stony Silence is here. Path, Gaddock Teague, Eidolon, sweet. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell a turn. Well, hey, I'm just playing enchantment. I don't care if I play 1 extra enchantment this turn. But if I'm playing against Storm, maybe they've got ways to get rid of my Leyline. Bounce it to my hand, for example. Well, not going to worry about that because they can't play more than 1 spell a turn. We've also got a playset of Seal of Primordium here. So adjusting how it deals with artifact and enchantment and stuff like that by going for a seal. I like that kind of flexibility that this offers. But the deck is a lot of fun. It's, again, Glass Cannon style. Gets hosed by those sacrifice effects. It's got ways around the gum up of the boards by flying over it, by being able to trample through it. Like, there's ways around it, but it is basically, here's my single creature. How are you going to deal with it? So you can board wipe, you can blow up the creatures that way, because it's not targeting them to do that. Have to be careful, though, because the Umbras will protect it. So Liliana is really the best way to go about dealing with this sort of deck. Make them sack all day because, again, there's very few creatures. And maybe you can be able to go that disruption route too. If you're going first and they don't have that pregame effect of a Leyline, you could be able to strip down one of their creatures. It's possible they only have 1 in their hand. Maybe they've got 2 and you've got to deal with it that way. But, those are the routes to kind of deal with the deck. It is a powerful deck, though. Again, it's a glass cannon style, so you're going to have to do your best to kind of keep up with it as it just builds up this tower of enchantments there. So that's the sort of style of the Build-A-Bear green-white hexproof. It's powerful. You know, you're going to lose to it from time to time, but there's chances that it will just lose to itself. Maybe it won't be able to find the evasion. Maybe it won't be able to find that trample that it needs, and you know, you're able to start swinging in, because again, the deck doesn't tend to block very much unless it can get Daybreak, and it can do double duty. So unless it gets that vigilance from that, you're not going to see it block too much. So you could be really aggressive and just try to race it. And you know, that is a possibility that you can be able to go to try to defeat the deck. But you know, let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think about the deck. Is there any changes that you would make to some of these lists? What do you think about the choice to kind of go that flying route and kind of negate some of the other stuff? The cartouche, do you guys like that addition into the list? You know, how are you guys playing your list at home? Let me know if there's any other videos you'd like to see for Modern, because again, I've been talking about a lot. There's been so many. At the end of the video, you can see we do have a playlist that does go over all the videos we've talked about. We're going to be going into Standard soon, and that'll be at the beginning of the week. We're also going to be doing some Hearthstone stuff at the beginning of the week. You know, there's some cool decks that I've been playing in Hearthstone. And then end of the week, guess what? You're still going to have your Modern meta breakdown for all you guys out there kind of getting into Modern, learning about the different decks, or hopefully looking for a new deck to play. But that's going to do it for us here tonight, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, and I'll see you guys next game.